You know, Pokémon is a uniquely complex game. Aside from the fact that you have a series that has to manage well over 1,000 unique Pokémon, and hundreds of different forms on top of that keep things from being just basic paper beats rock, scissors beat paper, and rock beats IRS agent so you don't have to file your taxes. Invisible mechanics like EV and IV spreads make you allocate your points wisely into either firepower or defensive survival, or just min-max like a cretin. Items help complement the longevity of a Pokémon or power up certain aspects of their kit to blast through the Great Wall of Blissey. But I believe abilities really are the most crucial aspect of a Pokémon's arsenal, and is honestly the biggest make or break for said Pokémon's viability. Welcome everyone to Channel Balakay. I am of course Balakay, and I want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by today's video. I've been doing a series of shorts for the past year, in which I have been replacing every legendary Pokémon's current ability with something that is either more thematic to its canon, or just because I want to get rid of pressure. At this point, I have covered about 30 legendaries, basically all of which from generations 1 to 4, since I believe said legendaries really needed something new, in order to stay relevant in the power-crept 9th generation. I was planning to stop after this video, but honestly, I still think that some of Gen 5's legendaries could be made better. So if you want to see a continuation of this series, let me know if you would like to see more in the comments below. This is a compilation of every legendary from Gen 1 and 2, with a surprise Pokemon that I believe deserve better. And as always, like and subscribe if you wish to see more Pokemon content from Channel Balakay, and it would really help me out in the light of the algorithm Arceus. Please enjoy. Articuno is the freezing cold feathery legendary bird of the Kanto region. This icy rock's past in competitive has been pretty dicey to say the least, and I think it's safe to say that Articuno is considered one of the worst legendaries in all of Pokemon history. Ice is an amazing offensive typing, but being on a defensive bird makes Artie here get reverse Uno'd into a pile of yellow snow. So to save this Pokemon from the snowstorm of mediocrity, let's make hell freeze over with a brand new ability. Whiteout will grant 2 effects to Articuno as soon as it reaches below half HP. First, Snow will activate, because it's honestly silly Articuno hasn't been given that ability before anyway. And second, the opponent will be frozen immediately after the activation of Whiteout, but the freeze will only happen once per battle. After activation, anytime Articuno swaps in and out, it will have Snow warning until it fades. Now with this new chilly ability, there will be a sub-zero chance that Articuno is anywhere less than OU for the foreseeable future. Zapdos is the jolting and bolting bird of legend, and in competitive terms, the most consistently dominant force of the bird trio. Never dipping below UU in a 28-year span, for lack of a better term, is electrifying to say the least. And like the Beast trio that I covered, it honestly already had the perfect ability in Lightning Rod from the Dream World in Gen 5. But for some reason, Zapdos got access to this hidden ability zapped away, while Articuno and Moltres kept theirs. I think to elevate this elemental avian once more, we need to give Zapdos a bold new ability to bolt back to the top of the food chain. Volt Fury will activate when Zapdos gets to 75% its HP, and will brew up electric terrain, while simultaneously paralyzing its opponent upon activation. The para will only occur once, and every time Zapdos switches back onto the field, it will be able to summon electric terrain until it faints. Now Zapdos can reclaim its position as a dominant threat, and remind the world once more that Team Instinct is still the best team from Pokemon Go. Moltres is the flying, flaming firefowl of the bird trio, and is the main course for any Stealth Rux user pre-Gen 8. Like Articuno, Moltres' weak-type combo should be a massive hindrance to its viability in competitive Pokemon. Thanks to the advent of heavy-duty boots, Moltres is probably in the best shape it's ever been as a balanced legendary, even having the most fitting hidden ability in Flame Body, cause, well, but after living in the stormy shadow of Zapdos for all these years, Moltres needs to muster up the valor to turn up the heat with a brand new ability to stoke the flames of battle. Radiance will kick in when Moltres reaches 50% its HP. First, the opponent will be burned, and second, due to its flaming body burning brightly and brilliantly, Moltres will cause a single stage drop of accuracy. Burn will only occur once, and have its secondary effect active until it faints. So yes, Moltres will turn into a switchable, guaranteed accuracy drop. Now Moltres can make like the Weeknd and blind all its opponents by the light. Mewtwo is the main Machiavellian maestro of maliciousness in Gen 1. As the original big bad legendary of Pokemon, its status has never been questioned. It has the stats to back it up, and even into its late 20s, it's still Mew maxing with things like its Mega Form to stay in shape. Canonically speaking, in terms of Pokemon that have access to pressure, I think Mewtwo might be the best example of a legendary to have this ability. But once being the absolute pinnacle of domination in competitive Pokemon, Mewtwo is just happy to get an invite to the party these days. But to pay homage to the better days of yesteryear, Mewtwo needs a retool for the modern era with a brand new ability. Psychosis will grant Mewtwo the ability to lower the opponent's special attack by a single stage when entering the battlefield. But unlike Intimidate, Psychosis will ramp up in stage loss by another stage each time Mewtwo is swapped out and swapped back in, and will go down to 3 stages as a cap after its 3rd switch in. Now Mewtwo can cause more psychological damage to your opponent than when Netflix thought it was a good idea to remake the first Pokemon movie. Mew is the mythical master of many movesets, and is the molecular ancestor to all of Pokemon. This cat-like psychic wonder hails from the long and forgotten lands of South America. If we still live in the same world as Pokemon, then I can't wait to see the Los Angeles region. Competitively speaking, Mew was once the pinnacle of adaptability, but because of Gen 9's insane levels of power creep, Mew now has to hide under that damn truck just to avoid getting thrashed by all its descendants in OU. Now holding the title of the biggest drop-off of any legendary Pokemon, it's about time we pay respects to our elders with a brand new ability that equals its adaptive nature. Molecular will alter Mew's typing whenever it is switched onto the battlefield, and will always match the typing of its opponent. It won't change the stats or appearance like that of Imposter, or the move typing like Libero or Protean. It'll simply copy the types of whichever opponent's Pokemon is fastest. Now Mew can feel anew, since it knew that upon review of Team Preview, the enemy withdrew upon Mew's pursuit.
Oh, hell no, man. What the f, man?
You know, there really isn't any Pokemon around like Unknown. Introduced with such intrigue back in Gold and Silver with the 26 different forms of the sentient hieroglyphics, after it was even the leading cause of conflict in the 3rd Pokemon movie, the world was waiting to see the full potential of these mysterious letters. So how could Game Freak possibly mess up the potential of this Pokemon? Pun definitely unintended, it is quite an unknown reason why this Pokemon has been treated so poorly when it has all the potential in the world. So let's make it, well, known why this Pokemon should be recognized. Alphabet will be contingent on whichever unknown of the alphabet is on the field, which makes you question and exclaim to Game Freak why they haven't done this already. Depending on the letter, that unknown's presence will automatically disable any moves of the opponent's Pokemon. So if T is out, moves like Taunt or Terra Blast can't be used until Unknown leaves the field. Obviously a very situational ability, and it also turns a regular Pokemon match into a can of alphabet soup. But considering Unknown's only move, Hidden Power, got canned faster than a kid with a stutter at a spelling bee,
I was gonna foot him,
Unknown can now spell misery with a whole party of 6. Suicune is a watery doggo and leader of the legendary beasts, and really the only dog of the trio. This wandering wet pupper is the only member of a minor legendary trio to get their own game, and with its prehistoric predecessor leaving a wake of destruction in competitive Pokemon as of Gen 9, Suicune has never been anything less than prominent. While this legendary has been absolutely fantastic in every generation available, it's only been 85% so. Its access to moves like Scald and Calm Mind made Crocoon a name to be feared for decades. I think the missing 15% that Suicune needs is a unique ability for this iconic good boy. So let's change that. Purify takes direct inspiration from Suicune's depiction in Pokemon Forever and Pokedex entries. This ability simply gives Suicune an immunity to being poisoned, and 50% less damage from poison-type moves, with the added benefit of being able to take away toxic spikes once it touches down on the field. However, with this new ability, it is now more difficult than ever to take down this stalled juggernaut. But do I care? No. I just like the idea of Toxic not being able to corrupt such a pure doggy, and not wasting away in a puddle of dog water. Entei is a ferociously fluffy feline and absolutely not a dog. Yep, not making this mistake again. While the popularity of Entei is quite high, it is actually the lowest ranked of the trio in terms of viability. While Fire is a universally outstanding offensive typing, coupled with Sacred Fire as a strong stab move to ensure a scorched opponent feels Entei's wrath. But like any cat, this legendary sure does cower in the presence of a little moisture. With a strong new Paradox form in Gouging Fire, Entei now just needs a strong new ability to play catch up with the rest of its resurrected kin. So let's change that.
Volcanic Presence will grant Entei 2 different effects. For one, Eruption for Entei will always remain at max power regardless of its HP count. And second, any and all Rock type and Fire type moves will gain a power increase of 30%. Now when Entei enters the field, volcanoes across the world will bellow even more mighty, much like its roar. Wait, roar or bark? Raikou is a versatile, voltage-filled fur baby, and is the closest Pokemon we'll ever get to having Diego from Ice Age in-game. This thunderous tiger is often the distant member of the Beast Trio. Entei and Suicune got all the love for their appearances in Spell of the Unknown and Forever, while Raikou was taking super effective L's by kicking sand around, which is shocking, since Raikou has been just as consistent as Suicune in competitive, and even overtook its feline brethren in usage when it had access to Volt Absorb. In order to recorrect past mistakes, let's change that. Voltaic will activate upon switching into the battlefield, and simply give Raikou a 20% charge each turn before using an electric type move. Pretty much like Electromorphosis for Bellibolt, except Raikou doesn't need to wait for a silly contact move, and it can just keep charging back up after discharging a discharge at its opponent. Now Raikou can stick its head above the clouds, knowing that its ability woes are now ancient history. Oh, yeah. Moral of the story, just use Paradox Pokemon.
Ho-Oh is the ever-elusive polychromatic phoenix and bringer of eternal happiness to any trainer who gazes upon it, until the stealth rocks come out, then it's damnation. This rainbow bringer holds a special place in millions of trainers' hearts from its appearance in the very first episode of the anime. Ho-Oh might be a phoenix, but goddamn if it ain't built like a turkey with these kind of stats. Thanks to the heavy-duty Tims Ho-Oh rocks into battle, there isn't much of a handicap that is keeping Ho-Oh from being a dominant force anymore. Regenerator is honestly perfect for Ho-Oh, but if we want to be even more thematic to its roots, let's change some things. Prismatic will be like a diet take on Terrasto mechanics for Gen 9. Much like how when a single light turns into a ray through a prism, Ho-Oh's attacks will hit for neutral damage on all not very effective types. So basically all these types would get rocked harder than rocks rocked this rockin' bird. Now that Ho-Oh can indiscriminately dish out a can of whoop-ass, it can now fly off into the sunset, knowing that its trail of colors mean death.
Lugia is the ginormous guardian of the seas, only of course when Manaphy is out on a smoke break. Interestingly, Lugia was actually not created for Gen 2, but rather specifically for Pokemon 2000, so that's kinda neat. It's a Sea Guardian, a legendary bird wrangler, and the most infamous wall in the history of competitive Ubers. Why would I want to create a new ability for Lugia, when multi-scale is already broken enough? Well, for a supposedly powerful legendary, instead of being built like the Berlin Wall, let's come in like Ronald Reagan and tear it all down with a wrecking ball of a new ability. Stormbreaker falls in line with Pokedex entries that pertain to the true power that Lugia possesses. If Lugia lands both Rain and Tailwind will activate at once, but only for 3 turns. If you break this ability down, this might be the most broken entry yet in this series. But legendaries are meant to fly high above the rest of the Pokemon world. And why not let Lugia finally stretch its finger-licking wings to no longer slumber in rock bottom?
Celebi is the titular time-traveling mythical of the Pokemon world, only said to appear during times of peace, and not appearing in the latest DLC alongside its fellow Johto legends can only tell me one thing. Well, if Celebi ever decides to come back from grabbing milk from the corner store, this onion-headed looking ass would have quite the trouble in the current generation of Scarlet and Violet. Celebi needs an equally adaptive new ability so that it can come back and be a staple of competitive forever. Eh? Time Slip would work in a singles and doubles capacity, and would allow all 2+ turn damage dealing moves dealt by allies and itself to be completed in the same turn, so basically Power Herb in ability form. And as a complement of the ability, moves like Hyper Beam and Giga Impact would no longer need a recharge time after use. This will only pertain to damage dealing moves to avoid Geomancy shenanigans from occurring. Celebi can now live in the current age of Pokemon with no worry of peace, because as soon as it touches down on the field, everyone will be long dead with the impending Hyper Beam spam.